The Way of Thorough Investigation, Unravelling the Chain, a discourse on the Parivīmaṁsanasutta, SN 12.51. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Perfectly Enlightened One. Introduction. The Call to Investigate. My friends, fellow seekers along the path, welcome. Today we gather to explore a discourse that is at once a map, a method, and a mirror. It is a teaching that does not ask for blind faith, but issues a challenge to investigate, to probe, to question reality at its very core. We will be looking at the Parivīmaṁsanasutta, the Discourse on Thorough Investigation, which is the 51st sutta in the Kindred Sayings on Causation, the Nidāna Saṁyutta of the Saṁyutta Nikāya. The setting is familiar. The Blessed One is dwelling at Sāvatthī in Jeta's grove, Anāthapiṇḍika's park. He addresses the bhikkhus directly, and the question he poses is the most fundamental question any spiritual seeker can ask. Bhikkhus, when a bhikkhu is making a thorough investigation, in what way should he thoroughly investigate for the utterly complete destruction of suffering? Notice the phrasing. Not the reduction of suffering, not the temporary alleviation of suffering, but the utterly complete destruction of suffering. This is the goal of the holy life. This is the promise of the Buddha's awakening. And the Buddha is telling us that this goal is attainable through a specific kind of inquiry, a thorough investigation. The bhikkhus, with proper reverence, defer to the Buddha, saying, "Venerable Sir, our teachings are rooted in the Blessed One, guided by the Blessed One. Take recourse in the Blessed One." It would be good if the Blessed One would clear up the meaning of this statement. And the Buddha, compassionate and skilled, agrees. Then listen and attend closely. Bhikkhus, I will speak. What follows is not a complex philosophical treatise. It is a step-by-step method of contemplation, a series of questions we can apply to our own experience, right here, right now. As one scholar notes, dependent origination appears to be about how sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair arise from the perception or idea of aging and death in the here and now. This is not merely a theory about past lives and future lives, though it encompasses those. It is a living, breathing reality unfolding in every moment of consciousness. Let us now journey through this sutta, allowing its investigative spirit to penetrate our own minds. Part 1. The Method of Reverse Inquiry. The Buddha begins by giving the bhikkhu a specific line of investigation. He says, "Here, bhikkhus, when he makes a thorough investigation, a bhikkhu thoroughly investigates thus: the many diverse kinds of suffering that arise in the world, headed by aging and death. What is the source of this suffering? What is its origin? From what is it born and produced? When what exists, does aging and death come to be? When what does not exist, does aging and death not come to be?" This is the method of tracing effects back to their causes. We start with the most evident, the most universal of experiences, suffering, dukkha. And at the far end of suffering, the sutta tells us, is aging and death, jara marana. Now, aging and death are not just events that happen at the end of life. In the Buddha's teaching, they represent the entire process of decay and dissolution that is inherent in every conditioned thing. Every moment of experience arises, persists for a brief instant, and then falls away. That is birth, aging, and death occurring at the micro level. So the investigating bhikkhu asks, upon what does this aging and death depend? What must exist for it to occur? And as he investigates thoroughly, he understands. the many diverse kinds of suffering that arise in the world headed by aging and death. This suffering has birth as its source, birth as its origin. It is born and produced from birth. When there is birth, aging and death comes to be. When there is no birth, aging and death does not come to be. This is the first insight. Aging and death are not random. They are not punishments from a deity. They are the natural, inevitable consequence of birth, jati. Wherever there is birth, whether of a physical body, an emotion, a thought, an identity, there will be its aging and death. The sutta then says, he understands aging and death, its origin, its cessation, and the way leading on that is in conformity with its cessation. He practices that way and conducts himself accordingly. This is called a bhikkhu who is practicing for the utterly complete destruction of suffering, for the cessation of aging and death. Notice the fourfold understanding. This is the application of the Four Noble Truths to each link of the chain. The bhikkhu understands the truth of aging and death itself, the origin of aging and death, which is birth, the cessation of aging and death, which is the cessation of birth, the path in conformity with that cessation, the practice that leads to the ending of birth. This is not mere intellectual knowledge. It is pariñña, full comprehension that transforms the mind. But the investigation does not stop there. The Buddha continues. Then, investigating further, he thoroughly investigates thus. What is the source of this birth? What is its origin? From what is it born and produced? Now the bhikkhu traces birth back to its own condition, and he understands. Birth depends on existence or becoming, bhava. Becoming is the accumulation of karmic momentum, the powerful urge that propels us from one state to another. It is the I want to be, or even I want not to be, that underlies so much of our activity. And he investigates further. What is the source of this becoming? He understands. Becoming depends on clinging, upadana. Clinging is the act of grasping, holding on, taking as mine. It is the mind's desperate attempt to possess and control experience. And further, clinging depends on craving, tanha. Craving is the thirst, the deep-seated longing for sensual pleasures, for existence, for non-existence. It is the engine that drives the entire cycle. And further, craving depends on feeling, vedana. Feeling is the effective tone of every experience, pleasant, painful, or neutral, and because we feel, we crave. Pleasant feelings give rise to craving for more. Painful feelings give rise to craving to be rid of them. Neutral feelings give rise to craving for distraction or for something more interesting. And further, feeling depends on contact, phassa. Contact is the meeting of sense organ, sense object, and sense consciousness. Without contact, there is no feeling. And further, contact depends on the 6 sense bases, salayatana. These are the internal sense doors: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Without these faculties, contact cannot occur. And further, the 6 sense bases depend on name and form, namarupa. Name is the mental side of experience, feeling, perception, volition, contact, attention. Form is the physical side, the 4 great elements and the forms derived from them. Mind and body are interdependent, like 2 sheaves of reeds leaning against each other. And further, name and form depends on consciousness, vijnana. Consciousness is the bare knowing of an object. It is the act of cognizing. And finally, consciousness depends on volitional formations, sankhara. And as he thoroughly investigates, he understands. Volitional formations have ignorance as their source, ignorance as their origin. They are born and produced from ignorance. When there is ignorance, volitional formations come to be. When there is no ignorance, volitional formations do not come to be. The chain is traced back to its root. At the very beginning, or rather, at the very foundation of the entire cycle, is ignorance, avidya. Ignorance is not mere absence of knowledge. It is a positive misknowing, a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of reality. As defined in MN 9 and SN 12.2, ignorance is not knowing about suffering, not knowing about the origin of suffering, not knowing about the cessation of suffering, not knowing about the way leading to the cessation of suffering. It is a blindness to the Four Noble Truths, and from this blindness, all volitional activities spring forth. The bhikkhu then understands volitional formations, their origin, their cessation, and the path leading to their cessation. He practices that way and conducts himself accordingly. And the sutta declares, this is called a bhikkhu who is practicing for the utterly complete destruction of suffering, for the cessation of volitional formations. We have now traced suffering from its most visible manifestation, aging and death, back to its most hidden root, ignorance. This is the method of thorough investigation. And as one source notes, there is in fact a forward version and a reverse version of dependent origination. The forward version starts with ignorance and ends with suffering. The reverse version starts with suffering and traces it back to ignorance. But the Parivīmaṁsanasutta offers something more. It offers a practical investigative method for actually seeing these links in one's own experience. Part 2. The three kinds of volitional formations. The Buddha now deepens the teaching. He introduces a crucial distinction regarding volitional formations, sankhara. He says, Bhikkhus, if a person immersed in ignorance generates a meritorious volitional formation, consciousness fares on to the meritorious. If he generates a demeritorious volitional formation, consciousness fares on to the demeritorious. If he generates an imperturbable volitional formation, consciousness fares on to the imperturbable. This is a profound and subtle teaching. Volitional formations are not all of one kind. They are of three types, corresponding to the three realms of existence and the three types of kama. Meritorious volitional formations, punyabhisankara, are actions motivated by wholesome intentions, generosity, ethical conduct, loving kindness, compassion. These lead to rebirth in the sense realm, but in happy destinations, the human world or the heavenly realms. When a person immersed in ignorance generates such formations, their consciousness fares on to the meritorious. It takes birth in a state where the fruits of that merit can ripen. Demeritorious volitional formations, apunyabhisankara, are actions motivated by unwholesome intentions, greed, hatred, delusion. These lead to rebirth in unhappy destinations, the animal realm, the ghost realm, the hell realms. Consciousness, propelled by these formations, fares on to the demeritorious. Imperturbable volitional formations, ananjabhisankara, are the highly refined mental activities that lead to the formless meditative attainments, the spheres of infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, and neither perception nor non-perception. These are called imperturbable because they are beyond the disturbances of the sense realm and the form realm. They are extremely subtle and powerful, leading to rebirth in the formless realms where existence is incredibly long and refined. Now, notice the crucial point. All three types are still rooted in ignorance. Even the most sublime, the most peaceful, the most refined meditative states, if they are generated by a mind still immersed in ignorance, lead to continued existence. They are still sankhara, formations, constructions, activities. They still propel consciousness onward to a new becoming. As one commentator notes, this interpretation seems to be often based on SN 12.51, which refers to these three types of volitional formations. This sutta is unique in explicitly linking these three categories to the second link of dependent origination. But then the Buddha presents the turning point, the moment of liberation. But when a bhikkhu has abandoned ignorance and aroused true knowledge, then, with the fading away of ignorance and the arising of true knowledge, he does not generate a meritorious volitional formation, or a demeritorious volitional formation, or an imperturbable volitional formation. This is the critical shift. When ignorance is abandoned, when true knowledge, vijja, arises, the entire engine of becoming is shut down. The arahant, the one fully awakened, no longer generates any of these three types of volitional formations. Not the unwholesome, obviously, but also not the meritorious. And even the imperturbable, those exalted states of meditative mastery, are no longer generated as kamic formations. Why? Because all such formations are still within the realm of conditioned existence. They are still activities of the mind that lead to some future state. The arahant, however, has seen through the entire process. As one source explains, since an arahant is free from ignorance, an arahant does not generate meritorious, demeritorious, and imperturbable intentions, but still generates enlightened/wise intentions. The distinction is subtle but crucial. The arahant still acts, still speaks, still thinks, but these actions are no longer formations in the kamic sense. They are what the commentaries call kirya, functional but not kamically productive. They leave no trace. They cast no shadow into the future. The sutta continues, since he does not generate or fashion volitional formations, he does not cling to anything in the world. Not clinging, he is not agitated. Not being agitated, he personally attains nibbana. This is the description of freedom, the mind that no longer constructs, no longer forms, no longer fabricates. Such a mind has nothing to cling to. And because there is nothing to cling to, there is nothing to be agitated about. No fear, no anxiety, no grasping, no aversion, just peace, just the coolness of nibbana. And then comes the declaration of final knowledge. He understands. Destroyed is birth. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more for this state of being. These are the words of one who has completed the journey. The work is done. There is nothing more to add. The chain of dependent origination has been broken at its very root. Part 3. The experience of the liberated one. The Buddha now describes in vivid detail the experiential quality of the arahant's remaining life. This is not a theoretical description. It is a window into the lived reality of one who has destroyed the taints. If he feels a pleasant feeling, he understands. It is impermanent. He understands. It is not held to. He understands. It is not delighted in. If he feels a painful feeling, he understands. It is impermanent. He understands. It is not held to. He understands. It is not delighted in. If he feels a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he understands. It is impermanent. He understands. It is not held to. He understands. It is not delighted in. The arahant still feels. The body still experiences pleasure and pain. The mind still experiences the full range of Vedana. But the relationship to feeling has been utterly transformed. For the ordinary worldling, feelings trigger reactions. Pleasant feelings trigger craving. Painful feelings trigger aversion. Neutral feelings trigger confusion and ignorance. But for the arahant, Each feeling is seen clearly for what it is, impermanent, anicca, arising and passing away, not to be relied upon, not held to, anupadana, not grasped, not clung to, not taken as mine, not delighted in, anāthapiṇḍika, not welcomed as a source of lasting happiness. This threefold understanding penetrates every feeling as it arises. The arahant does not suppress feeling. He or she experiences feeling fully, but with complete clarity and non-attachment. Then comes the most extraordinary statement. If he feels a pleasant feeling, he feels it detached. If he feels a painful feeling, he feels it detached. If he feels a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he feels it detached. Detached. The Pali term is Visaṁyutta, unconnected, unbound, free. The arahant experiences feelings, but the feelings do not bind him. They do not lead to craving, clinging, or becoming. They arise and pass away like bubbles on the surface of a stream, leaving no trace in the mind. As one source explains, an arahant can certainly experience unpleasantness. Buddha himself suffered from lack of food. Moggallana was severely beaten up. Sariputta became very sick. These experiences are surely connected to painful bodily feeling, but they are based on resultant consciousness of past karma. The active consciousness connected with them is inoperative, kiriya, based on utter detachment. The sutta then gives one of the most profound and poetic descriptions of the arahant's final passing. When he feels a feeling terminating with the body, he understands. I feel a feeling terminating with the body. When he feels a feeling terminating with life, he understands. I feel a feeling terminating with life. He understands. With the breakup of the body, following the exhaustion of life, all that is felt, not being delighted in, will become cool right here. Mere bodily remains will be left. This is the teaching on the two kinds of nibbana. The first is the nibbana element with residue remaining, se upadisesa nibbanadhatu, the state of the arahant still alive, still experiencing the results of past karma through the body. The second is the nibbana element without residue remaining, anupadisesa nibbanadhatu, the final passing away, where no further experience occurs. The arahant understands that feelings are of two kinds, those that are connected to the body, which will cease when the body ceases, and those that are connected to the life process itself, which will cease when life ends. And he knows that at death, all feelings, all experiences, all that is felt, because it was never delighted in, never grasped, will become cool right there. It will simply cease, extinguish, like a flame going out when the fuel is exhausted. The Buddha offers a powerful simile. Suppose, bhikkhus, a man would remove a hot clay pot from a potter's kiln and set it on smooth ground. Its heat would be dissipated right there, and potsherds would be left. So too, when he feels a feeling terminating with the body, terminating with life, he understands. With the breakup of the body, following the exhaustion of life, all that is felt, not being delighted in, will become cold right here. Mere bodily remains will be left. The simile is rich with meaning. The hot clay pot is the living being, fired by the heat of craving and clinging. When removed from the kiln, when the fires of defilement are extinguished and placed on smooth ground, the peaceful state of nibbana, the heat dissipates, the pot cools, and when it finally breaks, only potsherds remain. Only the physical remains are left. The heat, the animating principle, is gone. As one discussion notes, the heated pot is a metaphor for a living person. The body cools after death like the pot. But the simile also points to something else, the distinction between what remains and what does not. Mere bodily remains will be left implies that consciousness, feeling, perception, and volitional formations, the four mental aggregates, do not continue. They are utterly extinguished. Only the physical form, now a corpse, remains. This is the final cessation, the ultimate freedom from all becoming. Part 4. The confirmation of cessation. The Buddha now turns to his audience with a series of questions that drive the teaching home. He asks, "What do you think, bhikkhus? Can a bhikkhu whose taints are destroyed generate a meritorious volitional formation, or a demeritorious volitional formation, or an imperturbable volitional formation?" The bhikkhus reply, "No, venerable sir." The answer is clear. One who has destroyed the taints, who has uprooted ignorance at its very core, cannot generate such formations. The very capacity to create new karma, new becoming, has been abolished. Then the Buddha traces the implications backwards through the chain. When there are utterly no volitional formations, with the cessation of volitional formations, would consciousness be discerned? No, venerable sir. When there is utterly no consciousness, with the cessation of consciousness, would name and form be discerned? No, venerable sir. And so it continues. No name and form, no six sense bases, no six sense bases, no contact, no feeling, no feeling, no craving, no craving, no clinging, no existence, no birth, no birth. Would aging and death be discerned? No, venerable sir. Step by step, link by link, the Buddha shows that when the root is cut, the entire tree falls. When ignorance is abandoned, the whole mass of suffering ceases. This is not a theoretical cessation. It is a living reality experienced by the Arahant and confirmed by the Buddha's own awakening. And then the Buddha concludes with words of profound encouragement. Good, bhikkhus. It is exactly so and not otherwise. Place faith in me about this, bhikkhus. Resolve on this. Be free from perplexity and doubt about this. Just this is the end of suffering. My friends, it is exactly so and not otherwise. The Buddha is not asking for blind faith. He is pointing to a truth that can be verified, a reality that can be realized. But for those who are still on the path, who have not yet seen for themselves, he offers his own realization as a basis for trust. Place faith in me about this. Not faith in a person to be worshipped, but faith in the one who has seen, who knows, who can guide. Just this is the end of suffering. Not something else. Not somewhere else. Not some time else. Just this very teaching, this very investigation, this very path. The end of suffering is not a distant goal to be reached after countless lifetimes. It is a reality that can be touched here and now by anyone willing to undertake a thorough investigation. Conclusion: the call to investigate for yourself. My friends, we have journeyed through one of the most profound discourses in the entire Pali Canon. The Parivīmaṁsanasutta is not merely a text to be studied. It is a method to be practiced. It is an invitation to become an investigator of your own experience, to trace suffering back to its source, to see for yourself the chain of conditionality that binds the mind. The sutta has shown us that suffering is not random, but arises in dependence on conditions. That ignorance is the deepest root, the fundamental blindness that fuels the entire cycle. That volitional formations are of three kinds: meritorious, demeritorious, and imperturbable, but all, when rooted in ignorance, lead to continued becoming. That liberation occurs when ignorance is abandoned and true knowledge arises, when the mind ceases to generate formations and clings to nothing in the world. That the Arahant still feels, but feels detached, experiencing feelings without being bound by them. That final cessation is like a hot pot removed from the kiln, cooling until only potsherds remain, the body alone, with no further becoming. But most importantly, this sutta has given us a question to carry into our meditation, into our daily lives, into every moment of experience. When what exists does this suffering come to be? When what does not exist, does it cease? This is the thorough investigation. It is not a one-time inquiry, but a continuous practice. Every time suffering arises, every time discontent, anxiety, frustration, or pain appears, we can ask, what is this dependent on? What must be present for this to be here? And we can trace it back, link by link, until we arrive at the root, ignorance, the failure to see things as they truly are. And then we can go further. We can ask, what is the way leading to the cessation of this? And we can practice that way. We can cultivate the path. We can develop the direct knowledge that uproots ignorance at its source. The Buddha's final words in this sutta are words of assurance. It is exactly so, and not otherwise. The Dhamma is not a matter of opinion or speculation. It is a truth that can be realized, and the Buddha, out of compassion, has shown us the way. Now it is up to us. Will we take up the investigation? Will we look deeply into the nature of our own suffering? Will we trace it back to its source and cut it off at the root? The path is here. The teaching is clear. The goal is possible. As the Dhammapada reminds us, all too soon this body will lie upon the earth, bereft of consciousness, tossed aside like a useless log. But before that day comes, we have this precious opportunity, this human birth, this meeting with the Dhamma, this capacity to investigate and understand. Let us not waste it. May this discourse serve as a spur to your own thorough investigation. May it inspire you to look deeply, to question relentlessly, to practice diligently. And may you, through your own direct knowledge, come to see for yourself. Just this is the end of suffering. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.